Let me make this clear. I'm a Muslim, and I think anybody who attacked a mosque is going to have to deal with God. I'm not worried about the full force of the law. They should worry about God itself.
Isn't it extraordinary to see the conversations now that take place in these spaces? Piers Morgan and Andrew Tate's always going to be an interesting chat, because Morgan is one of the figures that's moved from old media to new with considerable aplomb, and is always an adept devil's advocate, able, whether it's a subject like Israel, Palestine, or Israel, Gaza, or however you want to frame that conversation, to take up an opposing stance and goad or invite his opponent into articulating the depths of their view. Now, in conversation with Andrew Tate, what is fascinating about the incredibly divisive, loved in some quarters, loathed and damned elsewhere, Andrew Tate, is that he is mixed race, he is Muslim, albeit a recent convert, and he did post some things that were not true at the beginning of these conflagrations. I wonder, when people are being arrested for posting or reposting things, how they will demonstrate the causal impact of those posts. And because that is sort of subjective and potentially rather ephemeral, we're in some really weird legal territory. And I suppose I'm glad I'm on Rumble, but that's no actual defense. So I suppose I should just keep reiterating that my personal belief is that we are all children of God, and that our primary goal here is to love one another. And when we find ourselves in complex social situations, which we undoubtedly are, our first commitment must be to non-violence, that we may manifest a higher principle. Because if we don't act like there is a higher principle, then there isn't one, in effect. Whoever is behaving violently, burning things down, attacking people, you have now transgressed to becoming part of the problem. The aim will always be love and forgiveness. That doesn't mean that we aren't forthright, strident, and ought not demand control over our communities. And when I say our, I mean all of the people that live here and that live on these islands. And in fact, more broadly than that, in a kind of our father sense, all of the people alive right now have got to find some sort of community together. And we may have strong views about which ideologies facilitate that and which ideologies prohibit it. But perhaps one thing we can agree on is that centralized state power is not about the enhancement of our individual experience or our community experience, but about the ongoing coalescence of power that power may be continually exploited by centralized global forces, some state, some bureaucratic, some corporate. In short, a new world order, which is something that's been discussed in these kind of spaces for a very long time. I pray for peace. I pray for conciliation between the various communities that find themselves in opposition. I pray that, like my friend who told me of Muslims breaking their Ramadan in synagogues because the Jewish community opened their hearts to the Muslims that were their neighbours, this is happening in the UK, that we can find simple, loving ways to resolution together. That's my hope. Let's have a look now at Piers Morgan and Andrew Tate in a tete-a-tete, peer-to-peer. That's not bad, is it, as puns go? Let's have a look at it.
Let me make this clear. I'm a Muslim, and I think anybody who attacked a mosque is going to have to deal with God. I'm not worried about the full force of the law. They should worry about God itself. But I also want to make something very clear to all the people at home, and clear to you, that most of the white people are very frustrated, and they're finding an enemy amongst themselves to take it out on. I think that the white people on these streets have a lot more in common with the brown people on these streets than they do with the politicians, because that's the problem we have here. Keir did not just only say they're going to face the full force of the law. He told everybody with a point of view, everybody who's concerned about the safety of their children, that they are extremists. And that is the most aggravating language you can possibly choose when people finally have had enough of not feeling safe on their own streets any longer. We have people who cannot afford to pay their bills watching migrants arrive who are now being held up in hotels at the taxpayers' expense for indefinite periods of time. We're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. Nobody voted for it. Nobody wants it, and everybody's struggling to pay their bills. Energy prices are through the roof. Inflation is through the roof. Now they no longer feel safe on their streets. They don't want to put their daughters outside to play. The police won't protect them. The police won't turn up for most crimes unless it's something you say bad on Facebook. And when they look for a political solution, they're ignored. What kind of powder keg are we building here through incompetent leadership in the UK? This is nothing but a leadership failure. There's not a country in the world where leadership could fail this spectacularly and see any
Andrew,
different result.
All right. But once again, Andrew, you are spouting nonsense in what you've just said. Not all of it, but some of it is nonsense. You say, for example, nobody voted for the UK to support Ukraine. We've literally just voted Keir Starmer in the United Kingdom with a landslide majority, and he made it crystal clear before that election that he would be contributing billions of our pounds to help the people of Ukraine thwart a Russian dictator. Well, you may laugh.
I watched this and I thought, I wonder how Tate's going to handle that. You know, I've been involved in a lot of online or in media or on TV conversations. I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh yeah, of course, there's the mandate. I think this is a pretty good response. I wonder how we are going to become sophisticated enough to hold together these ideas. Tate is a mixed race man. He's Muslim. It was irresponsible to post tweets about the identity of the perpetrator of those horrific attacks prior to it being confirmed. And he also makes some good points. How are we we are not being allowed to develop the sensitivity and intelligence that's required to live in a world where there's this much information and this ability to communicate. That's the direction we should be going in. It should be, bloody hell, there's a lot of information available out there, so everyone's going to have to get really smart and sensitive. No, what we're going for instead is, you're never going to be smart and sensitive enough to collate this information, so we are going to take control of information like we used to have prior to the advent of social media, and like we were able to establish prior to Musk's acquisition of Twitter. We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. Oh, when the saints come marching in, we want to be among them, don't we? So why don't you take a 7-day journey with Hallow through the lives of incredible saints? The challenge kicks off with Joe Mazzulla, the coach of the Celtics, and San Sebastian, the patron saint of athletes. It's been the Olympics, and we need to reclaim it for spiritual people, and in particular Christians, don't we? Rhea Wahlberg leads meditations, and Jonathan Rumi, Jesus is my body double, takes us through powerful stories of saints. The series ends with Father David Michael Moses and Blessed Piers Giorgio Frassati. Saints in 7 Days explores the rich stories of their journeys to sainthood, filled with God's grace and glory, and also the human struggles, great suffering, mistakes, and a profound need for God's mercy. The hard thing to accept is saints aren't that much different from us, you or I. Do we have the potential to become saints? Are we ready for that level of suffering and pain? Because you don't often read about saints and go, you know, they lounged about, they thought about themselves all the time, they was on the couch, they was on the sofa, they was just basically relaxing. No, they were striving. Download Hallow today. Strive to become a saint. Go to hallow.com/brand. It's Hallow as in hallowed be thy name. HALLOW. Hallow.com/brand today and join the saints. You know, like I read comments, I'm on the internet, so I know that anyone you name, you know, Tate, Piers, me, Elon Musk, right? There's going to be like just a column of people saying Elon Musk is amazing, controlled opposition, worst person in the world, criminal. Like for anybody, there is no consensus. Isn't all of it telling us decentralized power? Do not amass and accumulate more power. This is the end of projects that are of scale. Whilst there clearly needs to be some sort of understanding that we are on a planet with requirements, that has a population, that has, you might regard them as resources if you were looking at it from a humanist perspective, we also have to see what is so obvious to me, that this technology has created in commercial spaces Airbnb, Uber, all of these incredible corporate and commercial entities that are about the aggregation of communication. The ability, because like Airbnb starts with, hey, I've got a spare room in my house. Anyone want it? Of course, it becomes a massive multi-billion-dollar thing, and probably someone right now is telling me in the comments, do you know that that was backed by Serge Brin and Larry Page, a CIA carve-out funded Airbnb, or Uber, where it's like, hey, why don't we just give people a ride? Minicab firms could be like, if it can be corporately deployed, it can be governmentally deployed, can't it? Like the experiments that are conducted in Brazil, where there is more and more regional power, where communities are given a budget and able to democratically allocate how the expenditure of that budget, that could be happening everywhere all of the time. You could minimize the amount of centralized control, not maximize it. You could have communities where we say, we're here going to grow all of our food and be entirely responsible for it. We are going to be carbon neutral, or we're going to create all of our own energy. And over here, you could say, we are going to take advantage of centralized energy that is accessible. The idea that you would have centrally controlled water companies that can dump sewage into rivers, centrally controlled governments that can ignore 20-30% of their population when they want to, that there's no accountability or culpability when there are issues that clearly concern a lot of people. Surely the time has come to an end. It has. That's what we're all experiencing. And they are resisting that inertia. They are resisting that flow and trying to go, no, what we need is more authority and control. All of this free speech, look, it's causing these riots. It's causing fake information to get people to take medications. Ivermectin. Race riot. Well, how? It's pretty clear that they have an aim: maximize control, censorship, authoritarianism. How do we get there now that people can communicate and organize their own lives using technology? Well, we have to benefit from and exploit crises, putting it favorably. And I suppose at the extreme end, you might say, generate and create crises. That's a conversation that I'll be having elsewhere on this channel. And I've spoken to Dave Martin many times about those things, and that conversation is up now. You should have a look at that. All right, let's see where Piers and Tate go now.
But you just literally said the complete opposite. So we did actually vote for a leader and a party that was completely committed to dedicating billions of pounds of taxpayer money to helping people in Ukraine defeat Vladimir Putin. So that, again, is a complete untruth that you've just espoused.
I'm sure the people who are protesting up there in the north of England who can't afford to pay their bills, who are watching migrants live for free in hotels, who don't feel safe at night because the police don't have enough resources to turn up and respond to crime, are very happy that we're sending money to Ukraine. You're completely right. Yeah. The fact he only had 20% of the populist vote has nothing to do with it. And the fact that every single party will send money to Ukraine because we live in a uni-party system which is corrupt to the core in the first place. That's the reason why no matter who you vote for, the migrants keep coming. And no matter who you vote for, the money keeps getting siphoned out of the tax base and sent to Ukraine. That's the truth of it, is that most people are starting to realize and wake up from the matrix and understand there are no political solutions because it's all a scam and it's all a lie. What we need is people to understand at home that we have to think outside the box and vote for somebody who's not part of this two-party, uni-party insanity, which is why I was a fan of Nigel Farage. Even if he sells me down the river, even if he says I'm a bad person, that's his prerogative and that's his decision to make. I still believe he's the best choice as a leader for the UK.
There you go. That's an interesting conversation, surely, and not the kind of thing that you want banned. Even if, probably in both cases, there have been examples of information being posted that is not entirely true. Who gets to determine who is punished? In a sense, these are political ideas that are as old as politics itself. Who has the right to kill? Who has the right to censor? Who has the right to incarcerate? Who is it? And who gives them that right, if not God? Once we say God is not real, we're not going to involve God in the way we govern countries. We're going to govern countries on the basis of reason and argument, and yet still going to require things like trust and faith and honest conversation and principles like kindness and service. I believe that we are now moving beyond the utility of Enlightenment values and to the point where we need a fusion of the facility of technology and the values of spirituality. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.